The rules of the game of Flatlands are very simple. One person is the director of the archive. The director selects 2 cards from the decks, and that makes a phrase together. And that phrase becomes the directive that the players use to search through the archive and find a board that matches the phrase. And then the director picks the board that most fits the directive. The winning player becomes the director and the game begins again.
Flatlands somehow is a dystopian archive where the boards are kept, but you don't know where they come from. There's some darkness to this, and we wanted some word that had some reference to a lot of the conflicts that is inherent to the board. All of them are about some power struggle and some idea that are a little bit deeper than what you may think by looking at the very cheerful, colorful image that they represent at first. So when we were looking for words to be used, at the end we selected a speech that was made before an invasion, an historical speech.
We wanted the installation to feel like a kind of dry archive, maybe from a fascistic bureaucracy. And so we sort of liked the idea that the words that are being used to form the directive can help emphasize that feeling. Perfect force. It feels very contemporary. It's very historical, but it also feels, there's something very contemporary about it too, which is a little frightening.
I usually like very severe, calm spaces, and I realized that in some way, Flatland, perhaps more than architecture, is like a theater setting. And when I'm working with Eric and we're working with game, most of the time I find myself in the position of what would be like if you did not want it to play. And I think that's okay. Not everybody has to be as exuberant and willing to step in. So many times I want to think how the whole experience is still meaningful for somebody that wants to participate more as a viewer than as a player. And that's why I think it brings the scenography aspect of it. Usually we try to be very direct and honest about this being fictional and not real. The user material also usually is very straightforward, trying to just be as simple and direct as possible.
I collected the boards over a number of years.
You had them in storage for years and years.
Right.
And many of the boards were part of a box. Many were missing pawns and missing elements. So they had somehow lost their playable function in some cases.
Right. In offices where I worked, I used to decorate the office with a lot of these boards too. And when we were conceiving of a project, we wanted to use them as an element in the installation.
Eric is very optimistic, so at the beginning he wanted to make one game that could be played on each single board. We had tried on an extremely long table setting, maybe 20 boards, and trying to go from board to board to board. It just didn't work. It was very ambitious. I can do a game for everything.
A universal set of rules, recombinable rules. But in the end, we use the boards not for their game content, but for their cultural and aesthetic content. It's a unique project, yeah.
This is something we discussed also with Knapp, who has acquired the work. And of course, they have concern about the conservation of the boards. Some of them are newer, but some are really old. And of course, you can see that we have been maintaining them in a very unarchival way. Knapp will do a better job, but we did not want to use reproduction, which is something that's been discussed at some point. Doing the reproduction had a different meaning than knowing this is actually really true. And by seeing the real damage, the real age, you have a sense of authenticity, and that really was existing, really was a product that was available in the market. A reproduction would have a completely different meaning and wouldn't make sense.
In one hand, we're celebrating the sort of the aesthetics of the boards and the culture of play and how interesting and beautiful and diverse and weird and sometimes sexist and racist they are. But we're also kind of flattening them. We're sort of relegating them to just being a sort of a visual token that then a judge decides which one is better. So there's a sort of ambivalent relationship to the boards themselves, I think, within the context of the project. It's sort of like the junkyard of history a little bit. We set up a situation that seems very simple, but hopefully has more layers of meaning that emerge on a level of social play and psychology, on a level of meaning and cultural interpretation as well. Every game is like a machine for producing meaning. You could say this about other forms of culture as well, but I think in Flatlands, in particular, we wanted to make a game that emphasizes the meaning-making aspect of play. Do you agree with that?